Okay, Shavua Tov, welcome back, everyone. As we continue in the Tzurba Mirabonan series in Hilchot Shabbat, we are in the Lax Family Edition, Volume 20, the Nyaza Family Volume, and we are on page 185, and we're in Hilchot of Balei Hayim b'Shabbat, Hilchot of animals on Shabbat. And today's shir is dedicated to the Refuat Shelema of Ahuva Bat Batya. Okay, let us get involved. There's the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat on Daf Mem Gimel Amud Aleph. And the story there is as follows. Kofin et hasal lefne ha'efrohin sheyalu v'yiredu. What happens when a person takes a basket? Okay? So a basket technically is not muksah, right? You can use it for Shabbat. You carry stuff in it that you talk to carry. So the guy takes it and he flips it upside down. All right. And he leaves it now on the ground. So the basket is there like a step. And he has chickens. Chickens going up and chickens going down on the basket. Can I now move the basket? That's the question of the Gemara. Okay, so what's the idea here?
Why the chicken?
Okay, so that's the Gemara is going to explain. But until this point, it's as follows: you have here a din called mevatel kli mehechano. You have a keli that is mutter. Can you go and make it not usable on Shabbat? Right, it becomes muksa. And now, is this muksa temporary or does it stay the entire time? So here you had a good basket that could be used on Shabbat. A guy turned it around, and now comes chickens on it. So can you move it or not? Yeah, for the chicken. So Rabbi Yosef replies, he says, Kasava mutar leteltilo. You're allowed to move the basket. So the Gemara says, Vatani, but we learn asur leteltilo. You're not allowed to move the basket. So this is what Rami alluded to. Rami said, when you're not allowed to move the basket, while they are on it. Why you're not allowed to move the basket while they are on it? Because the basket turns into a bosses, into a base for a dvar muksa. What's the dvar muksa here? The chicken. Right? So from this Gemara, we see that the chicken or the chick or whatever these things are, these animals, they are muksa. Okay? Now, here the Tzurba doesn't finish the little sugi in the Gemara, so I'll just read the Gemara very simply. But Tanya, Al Pisha Ein Odin Alav Asur, but we have another bright that says even if they're not on it, it's still Asur. The Gemara says, but Odin Alav Kol Ben Ishmashos. That's when they were on it Friday evening going into Shabbat. Ben Ishmashot, if the animals are on it while Ben Ishmashot, while it turned Shabbat, so then it was Muksa before Shabbat. While Shabbat came in, it was already Muksa. It was never mutter on Shabbat, and then you made it. And then you got it back. It was right away the entire time. Migui. It's got se'ai levenish mashot. It's got se'ai lecholu yama. Once it became muksa, avenish mashot, when Shabbat came in, it stays muksa for the rest of the day. So you have this basket. If you turned it around before Shabbat, venish mashot, chicken are going on it and up and down, and it's muksa during the start of Shabbat, it's muksa the entire Shabbat. But if I took it Shabbat morning and I turned the basket upside down, only when the chicken goes on it. Right? That's when it's muksa to not, you're not allowed to touch it. It's the bosses, the dvar muksa. You're not allowed to touch it. But once the chicken comes off it, you're allowed to pick it up. So says the Magin Mishnah in source 25. He writes over here. And what's the pirish? What's the explanation? Any that's alive, whether it's a bird, behema, chayim, it's not mutter. Tiltul. You're not allowed to carry it on Shabbat. Lefi she'enan royin, because they're not royin. They're not fit for use. There's no Shabbat usage for it.
What are you going is the example of chicks because they're like toys. They're like
Good. Good. We're gonna get into it. What about if it's a pet and it's a toy and I do use it? and I do have a use for it on Shabbat. I can give it to the child to calm him down. So let's see. Let's see, sir. So Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch on the bottom page 185 on source 26. Aser litaltel behema chayev ve'oif. So Pashit says the Shulchan Aruch, you're not allowed to carry a wild animal or a bird. Says the Mishnah Berurah in source 27. Mishnah Berurah says, by the way, this is always, okay? Not just touching and picking up and stuff like that. Even when we said that you're allowed to do tzad, certain times you're allowed to trap an animal in certain situations. They're dangerous, they're painful, whatever it is. Says the Mishnah Berurah, even in such cases, even when they're causing loss and they're causing damage and you're not allowed to pick them up. Asur Mashem muksa, it's muksa. What do you have to do? You have to shoo them away. The isur tutul muksa hu afilu v'malkom hefsed. That is the Mishnah Berurah. You're never allowed to pick up the animal. Malkiel, you're here. So last week you asked the question. You remember? You remember your question? Or should I remind you?
Yeah, remind.
The question was, if you have a dangerous animal that's not dangerous to humans, but is dangerous to my chickens or stuff like that, can I kill it? I think that was your question, right?
Yes, yes.
So,
Do you research?
After looking into it and asking two paiskim, it's asur, you're not allowed to kill them. You just can shoo them away. You can't do anything else. You can't grab them, can't pick them up, right? Because like you said, Mishnah Berurah said here, the Malcolm Hefsed, you can't do anything. You can't pick them up. You can shoo them away. Just push them. You can, kind of scare them and stuff like that. Okay, very good. 1 second before we continue on in the Tzurba. In the Sefer Chayo Lamim, Rabbi Nachson, close of Shabbat, on page 254, Halacha 26, he writes as follows, the same thing that we just learned. Even if an animal is causing damage, one may not grab the animal and pick it up. You can't do it. Can't pick up the animal. All right, now comes our question. Did the Chachamim, maybe, perhaps, Efsher, made an exception when it comes to pets, right? What was the reason the Maggid Mishnah said you can't pick up an animal? There's no use for it on Shabbat. But pets, they're there for entertainment. They're there for companionship. So perhaps there is a usage for them on Shabbat. So here we have another source. We'll start with the Talmudical source. We're going to be Masechah Shabbat on Daf Memhe Amud Bet. So you have it on page 186 in source 28. Okay, let's take a look at it together.
Shulchan said pretty clearly, no? Can't push any animal.
Right, but let's see. Maybe there is some daya that perhaps it would be mutter. Let's take a look. So here we are on Memhe Amud Bet in source number 28. So Amar Rabbi Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Amru Halacha Kerebi Shimon. Okay, what's this? There's a famous throughout Masechah Shabbos, Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda when it comes to muksa, which is Rav Shimon has a limited definition of muksa. Muksa is not everything, right? Whereas Rav Yehuda has a more extensive, broader definition of muksa. We'll get into more explanations of it as we go into the next shiurim. But for now, Rav Shimon has a limited, Rav Yehuda has a more expanded, more extensive. So Rabbi Yochanan wanted to say that Rabbi Yochanan said that it's a limited muksa. But then the Gemara says, "Umi Omer Rabbi Yochanan hachi." Rabbi Yochanan said this. V'ha ba'a mine hahusava keruya v'armile seruya. Rabbi Yochanan, a certain Keruyan elder, and some say a Seruyan elder, asked Rabbi Yochanan this question: Kina shel tarnegolet mahu letaltule v'shabbat. You have a portable chicken coop. Can you move it on Shabbat? Okay. Can you move a portable chicken coop on Shabbat? So what did Rabbi Yochanan say to him? Is it not only made for a tarnigol? And since it's made for chickens, it's going to be asur on Shabbat. It's not fit for humans, and therefore it's asur. So he is going like Rav Yehuda with an extensive muksa, even though there's nothing inside of that's muksa right now. Since it's designated for chickens, it's going to be asur, right? So it seems to be like Rav Yochanan is going to Rav Yehuda, but Rav Chana said that Rav Yochanan says like Rav Shimon. So the Gemara says, "Hachi mayaskina." No, the truth is Yochanan holds like Rav Shimon with a limited definition of muksa. And so why does he say a portable chicken coop you can't move? You know what this case was? The efroch met. Efroch met is when you had a dead chick inside. So what's a dead chick? It's definitely muksa. So you have a dead chick inside the portable chicken coop. Well, then it's a basis for a dvar muksa, and you're not allowed to move it. So he does hold a Rav Shimon a limited extension, a limited definition of muksa, because there's actually muksa inside. That's why you can't move it. Not that it's empty and you can't move it because of a designation, but rather because there's muksa inside. So so here's exactly the point. So Tosfot says, Perish Rabbeinu Yosef, the loy nakat efrochai. Why didn't the Gemara say there was a chicken inside? Any chicken, a live chicken.
Live chicken.
So say live chicken. Why did you choose a dead chicken? If a dvar muksa is inside, you can't move it. Say a live chicken inside. Why did you say the efroach meis when it's a dead bird? So says Rabbi Yosef, you know why? Mishum the chai chazit. You can have it for what? Take botinuk to keep a child quiet when he's crying. There is a usage for a live chicken on Shabbat. If Rabbeinu Yosef is correct in his understanding, that would mean that if it's a live pet, that you have a reason for it, you'll be allowed to move it. That's Rabbeinu Yosef, right? Rabbeinu Yosef, pretty sure Rabbeinu Yosef. They learn not for chai. Why didn't it say a live chicken? The chai, it has a usage, and therefore it won't be muksa. It says Tosfos. I'm not happy with that. Tosfos says ve'ein nira. What? Right, that's exactly what Tosfos says. It says ve'ein nira. It doesn't make sense. The haba he the koifen esasal with my efrochin mashra the asul taltel. There you said I'm not allowed to move it when there's a live chicken on it. So how could you tell me here that a live chicken you could? No. So maybe don't read too much into the Gemara that it says it was a dead. That just happened to be the case. Now there was a dead chicken in there. But even if it was a live chicken, it'd still be usher. It's not the differentiation between live. So now we have the Maharach or Zarua. So the Or Zarua is Rav Yitzchak Or Zarua of Vienna, and his son Rav Chaim is known as the Maharach Or Zarua. He was a contemporary of the Rosh. So he sends a question to the Rosh, and he says to him, based on the Rabbeinu Yosef, he says, "I have this bird," and he thinks Mikol Makam nearly lahate letaltel oifas hamitzav tzefim bekol na'a, that they have a very nice voice, and they're not muksa. They shouldn't be muksa. Since there's a usage for it, their entertainment. So maybe I could be able to use these birds. I can move them on Shabbat. And the Rosh responded to him. And the Rosh said, my heart doesn't allow me to permit moving birds. My heart's not letting me permit this. And he writes, the Rabbanon made a low plug. They didn't differentiate between live and dead. They're all muksa. So you have here as follows. You have here a div for Rabbeinu Yosef in the Gemara to say maybe there's a difference between an entertainment bird, a bird that you can have a usage from it, and a bird that you don't have a usage from it. That's why it said dead and not live. And Tosfot says no differentiation. You have the Marach or Zerua that wants to go this differentiation, and the Rosh says no, there is no such differentiation.
Well, we see that Gemara that said dead bird, dead.
Yeah.
So it could be that's the differentiation over there.
Why? What?
Even Tosfot didn't like it, but I mean.
So you're saying there should be something. Maybe that was just the case. All right.
Because just a check on it. They have to live, dead, just.
I had to check on it. Oh, the case was with that checking. I hear you. So let's go into the Igros Moshe. So one of the coolest we have is the Igros Moshe. Interestingly enough, it wasn't in the original Igros Moshe. So in the original Igros Moshe, Rav Moshe was quoted to saying that any animal, including pets, or mashma, that even pets, would be awesome. But in the one that was printed after his passing, Rav Shabtai Rappaport confirmed that he was told Rav Moshe to write it this way. So let's take a look. Question, Igros Moshe. The small birds that chirp and the children play with, do they have the halacha of muksa or not? Ben Yosef permits moving a live chick because it's to play with. So says the Tzurba in source 31, page 188, Rav Moshe. Kol Balei Chaim muksa. All Balei Chaim are muksa. Afilu ba'otan, and even those that the tinokos, the sachin behen, that are playing with them, all of them are us. Then, after Moshe passed away, Rav Rappaport adds this in based on what he says. Rav Moshe told him, unless they were actually designated specifically for enjoyment, in parentheses, pets. So it seems to be Rav Moshe allows you to move pets. Similar situation happens here with Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Okay, so Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, when quoted by Rav Neuwirth in the Shmir Shabbat Kilchata, and you look at the footnote 25, he says that maybe there's room to say it's not muksa, but he never says that pets are not muksa. He holds that animals moving is muksa. Then later on, they bring the Shulchan Shleimer. And the way the Shulchan Shleimer sets it up, the halacha from Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, is as follows. He says birds and these dogs, that people who have plenty of time that waste and they play around with them, right? You see the lashon, right? Lehevel v'larik, right? Ragilim l'sachik bahem, since they're always playing with them, and since they're moving them from place to place, ein ze muksa. So you have again two Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. The first Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach doesn't say that pets are not muksa, and in the second one seems to be saying that pets are not muksa. So you have it from Rav Moshe, you have it from Zalman Auerbach. You have the first halacha that they say that it's muksa. Second halacha they say that it's not muksa. Rav Moshe was before and after. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach was they saying it's in an earlier source and then a later source. So in the notes in the footnote 25 on the page 188 on the bottom, the last sentence, they write this is the editors of the Tzurba. Okay, they write perhaps both Rav Auerbach and Rav Feinstein only addressed the issue of pets directly in later years, when it became more common to own a pet in some sectors of the religious Jewish community. So perhaps when they originally said the halacha, it wasn't becoming something that people had a lot of, so awesome. And then when it became more common and people were actually having pets and it became a thing that people had, they came to matter it. However, the Yalkut Yosef is very, very clear. And take a look at source 33. Kalavim Katanim. Af shehem, yuchadim, lishtashah, right? Start to play with. Ein l'taltalim b'Shabbat of Yom Tov mishum muksa. It says, Chavitzak Yosef in the Yalkut Yosef, that what? No such thing doing. You can't move pets on Shabbat. Can't move it to muksa. The Orchot Shabbat rules the ruling.
Right? But outside of no room or in your own house.
Muksa. Muksa. You can't move it. You can't touch it. You can touch it, yes. You can't move it. Okay, it's muksa. Fine.
Nothing to do with
Right, nothing to do with hotzah. Right, nothing to do with carrying. This has to do with muksa. Says Orchot Shabbat.
We no touch it also.
No,
You
you can't touch something that's muksa if you're going to end up moving it. If you're not going to end up moving it, you'll see that you could touch muksa. Well, we'll get into the hilchos of muksa more. Okay, let's see. Balachaim heimechal muksa says Orchot Shabbat. Ke'etzim va'avonim. They're like eitzim va'avonim, since they're not prepared for use. For another, you cannot move them at all. And even feel balachaim shemnei adam megadelim bebesehem v'regilim b'yimoisachol likach oisam beyadam beyadayim letaltelem hareihem muktzim ve'in letaltelem b'Shabbat. They are muktzah. You cannot carry them on Shabbat. V'lechein letaltel kelev v'chosel tzav v'efrachim hadlim lebayis v'chein letaltel kluv sheyesh boit. So you can't even move the cage. Says the Orchot Shabbat. You can't even move the cage. The cage is a basis for Dvar Muksa. Can't move it. Fine. Let's just see here for a second. Here, we're going to do it outside the Tzurba for a moment. Animals in the Chayil Amim, Rav Nakson, page 252. He writes, animals are essentially functionalists on Shabbat and considered muksa. Playing and looking at animals and being entertained by them is not a function and cannot make it a non-muksa. Even a bird that can sing or imitate sounds is muksa and may not be moved. That's the halacha in the end. Okay, now comes this part. Can I pet the animal? Can I pet the animal? I'm not picking up the animal. I'm not moving the animal. Although sometimes, especially with the smaller animals, if you pet them, you're moving them. And that would be a problem. But let's say it's a bigger animal that I pet. If I touch, I'm not necessarily moving him. Can I do that on Shabbat? So Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch tells us, even if an animal needs it, bless you. God bless you. Bless you again. So even if an animal needs it, I mean, the animal is in pain. Shulchan Aruch tells us, you can't just pick up the animal. Any type of animal. You can assist it in walking. You can hold its neck and sides and move it if the animal needs it. But this is true provided one does not raise them in a manner such that their feet are raised above the ground. Since they are muksa, it's forbidden to move them. So you can assist them in walking. That means you can touch them, but you cannot pick them up. Here in the laws of Shabbat, he says holding their neck and its sides, and you help them move, then that will be okay. Let's see what he writes over here. So says Rabbi Nakson on page 253, outside of the Tzurba. Carrying an animal, even to elevate its pain, is not permitted. You may grasp an animal, such as holding it around its neck or by collar, and walk in order to alleviate its pain. Even then, a person must be careful not to pick it up while holding onto it. And animals that tend to pick themselves up, and David is not here, but he says chickens. You try to walk with them, and they pick themselves up. All right, so then technically you're going to be picking it up, and that would be usher. So that's what he writes about that. Pushing an animal is also permitted when it's to alleviate its pain, when it's a tzarech for the animal. You're allowed to push it. Such as chickens that may not be walked may be pushed. Okay? Also, you can pull it by its leash and stuff like that. Okay? Fine. That's on touching. So there is some room to touch an animal when it's a tzarech for the animal. Now, there's another source in Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch tells us a very amazing source on source 36 on page 190. Shulchan Aruch says, one whose hands have become dirty with mud may wipe them on the tail of a horse or the tail of a cow. So the Shulchan Aruch is allowing you to touch the tail of the cow and tail of the horse.
It's not stationary. It's movable.
So it's going to move.
Are you moving? Is nothing changing?
So you can pet it according to this source.
Tail.
So first of all, many people, many poskim, many rabbanim say, okay, this 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 halacha of the Shulchan Aruch has to be known in the context. First of all, the Kaf HaChaim says when the Shulchan Aruch said the cow's tail or the horse's tail, it didn't mean the actual live animal tail. He meant you made a brush out of the tail. That's the Kaf HaChaim. The earlier Tzion, so Chametzion Abba Shaul says, no, it's on the animal, but the tail, for whatever reason, in this case, would be considered tiltul min hatzad. Okay, and therefore it would be permissible. Others want to say it'd be permissible because of the dignity of a human. And in any other case, it would not be permissible. So many want to say that this is not a source for petting. In fact, here in the laws of Shabbat, Sefer Chayil Min, Rabbi Nachson, he writes petting. Listen to this. What was it? Petting and moving the hairs of an animal is forbidden on Shabbat, since even the hairs of the animals are considered muksa. That's what he says over here. Now, in the Yakut Yosef English edition, and I checked it out in the Hebrew edition as well.
And the note over there, note on the bottom, footnote 27, says that petting them will most likely lead to moving the animal. So that's Rabbi Nachson probably brought it down that don't pet it.
Yeah.
And the note on the bottom of
moving. Right, on page 189. Now I'm going to read to you the Yalkut Yosef over here. You have to read him clear. You have to read him well, because you would think otherwise. Let me take it to you. Page 187 over here. 1 second. Hold on. Here. Okay, here. There he says over here. Yeah. Ulam mutter b'negia ba'almo b'valichaim b'Shabbat. You're allowed to touch an animal on Shabbat. B'li l'taltalam, without moving them. K'moshe mutter l'ga'et b'chol muktzah. As it is that you're allowed to touch other items that are muktzah, as we'll explain soon. So says Chacham Ovadia, says Chacham Tzitzaga Yosef, you're allowed to pet. That's where you're not moving the animal. So I don't know if he means an animal without here, because over here they're saying here is muksa. Yeah, so comes out as follows. According to Chacham Ovadia, according to Yalkut Yosef, according to the Sephardic poskim, you can now pick up an animal, even a pet on Shabbat, and you cannot pet the animal on Shabbat. Not allowed. By the Ashkenazim, you have Rav Moshe after he passed away, and you have Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach in his second psak on the animals that seems to say that pets you'll be allowed to touch. The poskim nowadays say that you have tzarech gadol with your pet, you can rely on this Rav Yosef and Rabbeinu Yosef in the Tosos that's quoted, and Rav Moshe and Rav Shlomo Zalman in such cases where there's a big tzarech and it's your pet and you have to take it up, you would have a tzad to be samechan. But again, for Sephardim, we saw that there really is none. That we hold it's completely muksa. Touching it without moving it would be okay, but otherwise, any touching that would move it and then picking up would be awesome. Okay, that's on pets. No, Ashkenaz. One of the earlier Ashkenaz. Vienna. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Let's move on now to feeding animals. Can we feed animals on Shabbat? All right. So let's get into the next Gemara.
Before you sell.
Yeah, but can I feed any animal on Shabbat? Can I feed an animal? Maybe it's a tercha yisera. Maybe it's an extra work that I'm not supposed to be doing on Shabbat. So let's take a look. There's a Gemara. On your Tzurba on page 191, source number 37, Shechta Shabbos Kuf Nun Hey Amud Beis. The Gemara says, Kedetanya Notnin Mizonot Lifnei Kelef. You can put food in front of a dog. Ve'en Notnin Mizonot Lifnei Hazir. But you cannot put food in front of a pig. Uma Hefresh Ben Zelazeh. And what's the distinction between a dog and a pig? What is the distinction? Zeh mezonotav alecha. This one, the dog, their food is on you.
Depends on
It's depending on you. V'zeh en mezonotav alecha. But this other one, the pig, his food is not dependent on you. It's not dependent on you. So therefore, you can't feed him. So Amar Ravashi says we have a proof like this. Matzit and Amidaika, we have a Mishnah. And notrin mayim lifnei devorim v'lifnei yonim sheba shovach. We will not place water before bees or before doves in a dovecote. Aval notrim lifnei avazin v'lifnei tamagolin v'lifnei yonei hardesiot. Okay? And when one might place water before geese, chickens, and Herodian doves. Matama. What would be the difference? Why one yes, one no? La mishum dahane mizonotan alecha. V'hane mizonotan alecha. Because these ones that you say you can't put water in front of them, that's because they have water, right? And here it says you could put water in front of them because they don't have it. It's because it's on you. One case is where it's not on you, and one case is where it's not on you. Okay. Gemara says v'letamech, and if you say it's on you or it's not on you, right? Are they dependent on you or not? Ma iriya maya. Why did the Mishnah choose water? Afilu hite v'sha'are namilo, even weeds. V'sare. Here they put the shin in the article. I'm reading with the nekudas here and the okay. V'sare namilo afilu hite and sare namilo. Even weed and barley should not be given to them. Why did they choose water? And Lashani Maya, the Shecheba Agma. Why is water different? Since water is readily available in a pond. Okay, this is the way this Gemara is understood. First, the Gemara wants to say it depends on whether it's on you to give it, it's your responsibility or not. And then the Gemara says maybe no, maybe when the animal can get it without you, then you cannot give it. But when the animal cannot get it without you, even when it's not your responsibility, then you would be allowed to. So, interestingly enough, we have the Rambam. The Rambam, on page 192, in source 38, the Rambam says, when do you have a license to feed an animal on Shabbat? Right? And these type of animals. But if they're not on you, right? If it's on you, it's your responsibility, you can give them food.
On you means on this person is
So we have to see. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It's the machlekes. It's the Yalkut Yosef is going to be going that it has to be actually yours, whereas Rav Nachshon takes the day as others that not necessarily has to be yours. Just you are the custodian or whatever. You are the guy who today going to give them food because there's no one else around. Right? Does it have to actually be yours?
Your friends. That's,
right. All right. So we're going to see. We're going to see. Very good. Very good. So the Ran. By the way, that's the sheet of the Rambam and the Rosh. Right? I believe the Rosh also. Okay. There's the Rambam. The Ran says, whoa. What happened to the second part of the Braita? Second part of the Gemara. That says if they can get it, you can. If they can get it, you can give them. And if they can't get it, then you could give them. But why did the Rambam skip that out? Why did they skip it out? And so the Rif and the Rambam both skipped it. The Lo Yidati Lama, and I don't know why the Rif and the Rambam just didn't put that in. Okay, the Bet Yosef.
So what is a dog being said? It's assuming that a dog, a Jew can own a dog, would own a dog. They have it for sheep or like that.
We'll deal with the dog in a minute. We'll deal with the dog in a minute.
You're allowed to, the hinting allowed to keep piggy.
No, they said no.
No, not allowed to feed. But you
Yes, Malkia.
from here.
Question. When it says the one who's responsible for, the responsible is the owner or also the family members?
Right, Rami had the same
Rambam,
question. So, well, we'll see. Give me a minute.
Okay.
We'll get it. We'll get into it. Both very good. Very good. Okay. The Bet Yosef in source 40. The Bet Yosef says, "Le'inyan halacha naktinen kestam brayta." we take the brighter, the ketani. Ain't noite mizon lefnei chazer mipnei she'ein mizon tav alech.
Again.
The chum mizonot mashma, right? And this is all type of its food. And this Rav Ashi that we brought, it's just that we rejected its proof, but we didn't go with that with halacha. That's what says the Bet Yosef. Bet Yosef, the original halacha is if it's on you, your responsibility, you give food. If it's not your responsibility, you don't give food. Take a look at Shulchan Aruch, source 41. Shulchan Aruch writes, "Ein notrin mayim v'lo mezonot lifnei devorim v'lo lifnei yonei shovach v'yonei aliyah v'lo lifnei chazir aval notrin lifnei this geese and the tanagolim and the house-grown doves v'chein lifnei kelev shemizonotav alecha." It's your responsibility to give them food. That's the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch says you're responsible, you give food. It's not your responsibility, you don't. The Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish says that this is all rabbinic. And it makes sense the way the Ran learns it. That the second part, the Rav Ashi is also. And therefore, the one who relies on the words of the Ran has not lost anything. So if the animal cannot get food, even if it's not your animal and it's not your responsibility, according to Chazon Ish, you can go ahead and give it food. The Shiltei Giburim, and then we'll go through the actual halakha for Sfardi Psak. The Shiltei Giburim. Why is one not considered responsible for the sustenance of doves in the dovecotes or in the attic that one owns? All right, let's say their birds go into places that's my reshut. Why I don't have to give them food? One can answer that one is not considered responsible since they can find food to eat elsewhere. Right? If they can find elsewhere, not my responsibility. Okay, let's see. Fine. But I see dogs are not very good in finding food, apparently. We'll do 3 more sources, and then we'll go through the halakha. The Eshel Abraham of Buchach, that's what he say. Buchach. The Eshel Abraham of Buchach. Not to mix it with the Eshel Abraham of the Magen Abraham. Nevertheless, if one is throwing food from his hand in any case, we would have thrown it in a different place, one could suggest that it's permitted to throw it in front of animals. Right? So he's saying, I have leftover food. I'm taking it out. I'm anyway going to throw it outside. I can throw it in front of the animals. I'm throwing it out anyway. Throw it out in front of the animals. That's what the Eshel Abraham wants to say. Take a look at the Yalkut Yosef. Yalkut Yosef says, guy has tablecloth. And he's in the courtyard, or he's on the balcony. There's an eruv. It's permitted to throw it in a place where animals can come, where birds will come afterwards and eat the crumbs. Even if one usually shakes out the tablecloth elsewhere. Usually I throw it in the garbage. Usually I do something, but here I want to do it like this. As ultimately one makes this effort for his own needs and not for the sake of the birds in order to clean the tablecloth. I want to get rid of the tablecloth. I want to get rid of the food. So I can just throw it outside and the animals can come take it. It's not that I'm putting it for the animals. I'm putting it for myself. I want to get rid of it. So that would be fine. Okay. So here's the last thing, and then we'll go into the halacha of some of these sources.
Take your tablecloth and throw it.
Yeah.
What if you have something like can grow? I don't know. Eat.
If it's going to be eatable, okay. Yeah. Question. Good question. Okay, that was it. You have to make sure that it's just food that they can eat right now. The Eliyah Rabbah, that it's only if it's his own, says the Eliyah Rabbah. But the Bir Halacha says doesn't make a difference if it's actually yours or not yours. Just as the owner is permitted to prepare food for them, it's similarly permitted for another person to do so. It's not that it's your responsibility; it's your responsibility. But rather, it's humans' responsibility to make sure this person has food. That's the Bir Halacha. But the Rabba says it has to be yours. So now that we did these sources, let's take a look inside the Yalkut Yosef in the English edition. We're in volume 3 of the Yalkut Yosef, and we're on page 34. Just look at some of these halachot that we learned, just so we can look at them outside to see how we know how to do this. Okay. He writes, simple enough. David Netanelli has chickens and geese. He has chicken, I don't know if he has geese, in his yard. Since he's the owner of this, the owner of the bird, he's obligated to give them food on Shabbat. To give them food on Shabbat. It's his bird, his responsibility. But says Yalkut Yosef, if you have bees or pigeons, right, and they're able to go and get their own, so then you're not allowed to give them food, even if it's yours. But since they're able to go and get their own food, you cannot give them food. Okay. Pigs. Keep talking about pigs. Here we go. It is likewise forbidden to feed a pig on Shabbat. You're not allowed to raise them all together. Now, someone inherited a pig. Somehow it fell into his Yerusha. He got it from someone. Okay? He's allowed to keep it until he can sell it. In the meantime, he may feed it even on Shabbat. So it's a chazard that somehow it became your responsibility. You can feed it. Feeding animal belonging to others, right? This is the Yerabba Bir Alacha. Does it have to be actual mine or it can be someone else's? Says the Yalkut Yosef, it is forbidden to place food on Shabbat in front of an animal that he does not own. You don't own it, you can't feed it. Like Il Yaraba.
They went for Shabbat. They gave him the guinea pig.
I don't know. You have to somewhat acquire it. It has to somewhat be yours.
Yeah, fine. Put it in my
He's
house.
taking responsibility. Okay, I don't know. He says this. Right. Ain't no tim is not Shabbat lifnei kol bali chayim she'enam shelo. That's not his.
My neighbor always gives me. They go away. They give me the.
So what do you do? So what do you give an animal that it's not yours and you want to give it food? You're permitted to place leftover food by a garbage bin, even though the animals will eat it, since there's no extra bother in doing this.
He has his own food.
He has his bowl. If the animals have no other source of food and they are hungry, it's permitted to place one leftover directly in front of them. Okay? If they're hungry and they have no other food, then you're allowed to put it in front of them. Since one anyway wants to throw out the scraps, no extra tercha yaser is being used here. And therefore you're allowed to put it in front of the animal. Okay? So if you have the animal,
they go away a couple of days, give me the bowl of the fish. What should I do? Put it up?
and so he should give it to you. You should acquire it. You should take the animal. It should be yours for Shabbat. So this way you can give it food normally. Yeah. Same thing he said. It's forbidden to place out food for ownerless street cats. You have no obligation for them. If it's your house cat, then of course you have to feed them. But you can throw food in front of the garbage bins. Make sure it doesn't go in. You keep it outside, whatever. This way, it will be fine to do that.
No feeding squirrels outside.
Right. Don't feed the stray cats or squirrels. Now, interestingly enough, the Rav Naxon, in his collection of halachot, he takes the Bir Halacha side over here. And he writes as follows. He writes, you're permitted to feed any animal that relies on humans as its food source, whether he owns the animal or not. So that's the Bir Halacha, and that's the Sefer Chayavim. Rav Naxon takes that side. But the Yalkut Yosef says, no, if it's not yours, you can't feed it. You can't. It has to be yours. So that's Ilya Rabba versus the Bir Halacha, how you look at it. Okay? What else I wanted to bring from here? Animals that may be fed. Fish in an aquarium, pet birds, chickens, or other farm animals that one owns. What else he writes over here? If one sees an animal on Shabbat has nothing to eat, although he's not responsible, you may place food before it. We saw that. Even the Yalkut Yosef saw that. And you can throw it in front of the dumpster, shake out tablecloth on the ground where the birds will come. All that would be permissible. Okay. Now we get a little into dogs. Okay. Perhaps the halacha is a little bit more lenient when it comes to dogs. Let's get into dogs over here. We're in source 47. Source 47. And we have as follows. Darash Rabbi Yonah Apitra Deve Nisiyah. Rabbi Yonah expounded in front of the entrance of the Exelar palace. And he said as follows, "My dichtiv." What does it mean when it says in Mishlei, Yodea Tzadik Din Dalim? The righteous one knows the suffering of the poor. What does this mean? You know what it means? Yodea Kadosh Baruch Hu Bekelev Shemizonotav Mu'atin. Hashem knows that a dog has little food. Doesn't have a lot of food. Lefichach shoha achilato v'me'av shlosha yamin. Therefore, Hashem made it that the food the dog eats lasts in its belly for 3 days.
Not good hunters. In the wild, they need a group of them in order to
to find food.
Yeah.
So it says Hashem knows this, so He makes it that the food that they do get lasts in their stomach for 3 days. Amar Rav Hamnuna, Shemamina, we learn from there. Orach ara lemishda umtza lechalba, that it's proper to throw a chunk of meat to a stray dog. V'chaman, how much? Amar Amari, meshach udne v'chutra abatre, the size of its ear, followed immediately by a bang from the stick. Why you want to give him hit him with the stick afterwards? You don't want him to follow you and get used to coming to you for food. So you give him food and then you hit him. Don't come back. Okay? And then hani miri bedavra. It's only in the desert. In the city, one should not throw any meat in it. Because it will tend to tag along after him. Okay? So but we see what Rav Hamnuna said, that it's you should throw meat in front of it. And says the Magen Abraham in the box over there, the basis Gemara, one may feed even an ownerless dog on Shabbat, since it is proper to provide sustenance to such a dog. Mishnah Berurah also quotes this leniency, but adds that one should not feed a dangerous dog. So says the Mishnah Berurah in Chot Shabbat, even if dog is permitted, that one does not raise in one's home. It is somewhat of a mitzvah to provide it with food. So it turns out that dogs have a special classification, and you're allowed to give them food on Shabbat. And in the laws of Shabbat, he brings it down here in the in Axon outside in the laws of Shabbat. He writes, even though it's forbidden to feed stray animals on Shabbat, one may feed a stray dog as long as it's not dangerous on Shabbat, because you have a mitzvah of feeding a stray dog. That's how Hamnuna said. You have to feed it. Let's just take a look at the Yalkut Yosef. He writes over here. Now Yalkut Yosef, he got a little bit more machmir on this. He says, nah. He says as follows. Some poskim rule it's permissible to feed stray dogs, since they likely have difficult time finding food themselves. Other rules that one may feed only a dog that one owns. If you want a fish to feed a stray dog, what should you do? Take your leftover scraps that you're planning to throw away and throw it next to him. And this way, you're not doing any tircha yetera to give the food animal. So again, seems like the Chamabadia, Chamitzak Yosef, they are more, what's it called, not so lenient when it comes to the stray dog. But again, the Mishnah Berurah, Halacha, Sif Chayol Amim, they are making when it comes to these things. Okay. Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata. On page 196. You're allowed to put food in front of any living creature which cannot find food and is hungry on either Shabbat or Yom Tov. So you find an animal that's, what's it called? Can't get its own food. But right, Rav Asher Weiss brings 11 sources for the mitzvah of to not do Tzar Ba'al Chaim, right? And 11 sources that he brings. One of these is Rahma Kol Ma'asav. You're allowed to even put food in front of a dog, even if humans are not responsible for its food. Now, mutter litain ochel mefian sholtana behemot shekasher lehen lekachat ochlam be'atzman. You're allowed to even put the food inside the mouth of the animal. But you have to make sure you have to be careful not to move the animal, right, while you're feeding him, because moving muksa will not be allowed. Okay, so you can't move it while you're feeding the animal. And says the same in the Yalkut Yosef English edition, volume 2, page 186, halacha 71. It's permissible for someone to feed his own animals Shabbat if necessary, he may feed them by hand and touch them while feeding, as long as he doesn't pick them up and he doesn't move them. Therefore, you're allowed to open its mouth and feed it. And why? Because moving only part of an item that is muksa is permitted when it's needed on Shabbat. You're not moving the whole animal, you're just moving his mouth. Okay? That would be permitted, says the Yalkut Yosef. All right, some dinim about an aquarium, of having fish at home. A lot of people have an aquarium at home. And it's a nice scene. It looks nice. It keeps the kids busy. All right? We had an aquarium back in my house growing up for a little while, until it got hard to take care of it, and the filter broke, and then the fish died, and then you had to replace the whole thing a few times. All right, here we go. Changing the water in an aquarium containing fish is forbidden on Shabbat. You're not allowed to change the water on Shabbat for the fish, but you're allowed to add water to it. Okay? You're not allowed to stam add water to it. The only reason you'll be allowed to add water to it if they're suffering because of insufficient water or it's not clean enough water. So therefore, when you're adding the water, it's as if you're giving them food. And since they're relying on you, you're allowed to give them food. So then that'll be permissible to add water in that ground as well. You're not allowed to move the aquarium on Shabbat. If the fish jumped out of the water on Shabbat, and there is reason to suppose that it will continue to live if returned, then one may return it. So you got a fish jumped out, you're allowed to put it back in if you think it's going to live. If a fish died, removing it from the aquarium is permitted in order to prevent death of the other fish. Okay, and it's not considered borer. You're allowed to take out a dead fish if it's going to affect the other fish. That's halacha also brought in the Yalkut Yosef like that. This may be done only if the dead fish is clearly separate from the others. He says you have to make sure that there's no other fish around. So you're not doing borer. You're just removing the fish. If the fish gave birth and there's small fish and big fish now in the tank, and you want to save the small fish, you can't do it. You can't take it out on Shabbat and Yom Tov. You have to leave it there. Okay? That's a little bit about fish and an aquarium. Now we come to the last idea, which probably would have been better if we learned it before Shabbat, because it's about Shabbat Shira. There is a minhag to take wheat or food or something and put it out on Shabbat Shira for the birds. Okay? So the Magen Avraham, he wrote, Yesh noagin leted chitim b'Shabbat Shira lefnei ha'ofot. Ve'eno nachon. And it's not right to do this on Shabbat. Shahare and mezonotanan alecha. Because their food is not on you. So how are you going outside and giving them food on Shabbat? How are you doing that? So says the Magen Avraham, it's not proper to do that. The Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan says that what? First of all, he says the Minig Yisrael Torah. Minig Yisrael is Torah. And why would it be allowed? He says that he's saying as follows. He's saying it's a mitzvah, which way I understood this Aruch HaShulchan was he's saying, you know, like Yaakov Joseph said, you're allowed to take the tablecloth. I want to get rid of it. I just throw it, right? Because I'm doing it for myself to throw away the food. So he's saying the similar thing. I'm doing it for my mitzvah. I'm not doing it to feed the birds. I'm doing it to do the mitzvah, the minhag of putting it out in the school of putting out food for the birds. It's for me, not for the birds. Okay, so he says it's for me and not for the birds. So therefore, it would be permissible to do that. Shvet Shabbat Kilchata rules strictly, and he says, like Magen Avraham, you're not doing the right thing if you're putting out food or leftover kugel, and you're not doing good. Avram Chamuvadia says, Yesh noagim b'Shabbat Shira lizok chitim chaterot to throw out wheat in the courtyards or put on the balconies and the like. Kadesh yavo et tziporim to take them and eat them. Vav sheyesh asurim, and even though there are those who say it's also mikol makom hanohagim kain yesh lahem amash yismachu. They have what to rely on. Uminayam shel Yisrael Torahi, and the minhag of Yisrael is Torah. And what is his reasoning again? The reasoning would be, I'm not doing it for the birds. I'm doing it for me. It's not a tirchi yisera that I'm not feeding them. I'm doing the mitzvah. I'm doing the minhag of putting it out. Here are some of the reasons why people actually put it out. So one that the Aruch HaShulchan wrote that they were singing. The birds sang at the sea. All right, some say we gave the birds some seeds in the sea while we were crossing them. They ate them and they started singing. Another reason is because the birds helped us foil the plan of Datan and Aviram. What Datan and Aviram's plan was, Moshe Rabbeinu said, no man on Shabbat. Then Aviram said, great. We're going to get up extra early. We're going to take the man we have, and we're going to put it outside and say, Moshe, here's man. You're wrong. So they went ahead. They put the man. They're all excited. The car, my Moshe is going to walk to shul. We're going to say, what? Here's man. Fell on Shabbat. and we come outside, and all the money is gone. Who ate it? The birds. So to say todah to the birds, we put out on Shabbat Shira, which is the same time that we read the section of the mana. We put that out, and some say the final reason is, at least they bring over here, the final reason is that the is that what's the whole idea of the man? The whole idea of the man is that the mizonotav shel adam, of a person, comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? So today we don't have the man, but what we have birds, and other animals. They're not going to work, they're not making money, and they're not cooking in the kitchen, right? And yet still they have food. So we put out the food on Shabbat for the birds to say, here, you're not doing any work and you're getting food. So too, we have to remember that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one who gives us our mizonot, and it's not via our own work. Okay, so that is the idea of Shabbat Shira. Again, it probably, from a halachic basis, you're putting out the food for the birds on Shabbat Shira is to put it out before Shabbat. This way, it'll still be there on Shabbat, and the Yotze, according to everyone, and you won't have any issues. But put it out on Shabbat. Chazon Avadja says that you have you have what to rely on. Okay, so this ends off the fifth shir in the Hilchot of animals on Shabbat. Zat Hashem, the next time we learn, we'll start the world of Hilchot Muksam. Okay, Yashir Koach Lekulam. Thank you very much. We're gonna end the shir over here. Okay. I don't see a minyan.